The STAR technique is used to answer situational or behavioural questions in employment interviews, and they're used to assess how you have or how you would behave in a certain situation. They'll start with, "Tell us about a time," or "What would you do if?" and require you to provide examples of a specific situation from your past where you've demonstrated certain skills or characteristics, or ask you a hypothetical question to determine how you would behave in a situation. Employers use behavioural questions because they want to see evidence of your competence. Past behaviour is a predictor of future performance. If you've achieved something once, you're much more likely to again if you've done it before. Without a framework, your response to a question is more likely to be an unscripted story rather than a robust interview answer. A framework maximises your example by providing structure to your response. It gives it an opening, a middle, and an end. For the wafflers amongst us, it keeps us on point and stops long-winded responses that don't really hit all of the key points. For those of us that are short and sweet, it helps to make sure that we've covered all of the points in your example, and it helps to make sure you've answered the question fully. It's important when choosing an example from your life to avoid choosing broad and vague examples. These don't provide enough evidence of your competence. Instead, choose examples that are specific and have lots of detail and is something that you've actually done or achieved, not something that you would do or something that you've just been a part of. And it's important that the example that you choose has either solved a problem, overcome a challenge, or achieved a result. So how do we apply the STAR model to your chosen example? Well, STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. And the model is used in order. So we start with the situation. The aim of explaining the situation is to set the scene for the panel. You know the situation very well because it's your example, but the panel don't. So they need the context and the backstory so that they can fully understand the skills and the characteristics that you're demonstrating. If you were painting a picture, the situation is your canvas. It defines the size, the parameters, and the border of your story. So when explaining the situation, describe the scenario that you were faced with. Describe the challenge. Where did it happen? Who was involved? When did it happen? And why was this situation so important? When we move on to the task, you're aiming to explain what was required of you. You want to explain the specific task that you undertook. What were you required to achieve? What role did you play? What responsibility did you have? And what goal were you working towards? When you're explaining the action, you're aiming to explain how you completed the task. So you want to describe what you did, the steps that you took, explain why you did this, and explain the skills that you used, and detail any processes or systems that you used. When you're explaining the result, you want to explain the result of your action and link it back to the situation. You want to explain what the outcome was. Did your actions achieve the task? And then to really give your result some impact, explain what you learned and have you used this learning since, and how will you apply this learning in the future. So let's now have a look at how you would apply the STAR model to the question of, tell us about a time that you've had to resolve a conflict. Here's an example. In my previous job, I worked in a busy restaurant as waitstaff. On one occasion, I had to deal with an angry customer who was complaining that he'd waited too long for his meal and that it wasn't what he'd ordered. It was a busy time of day and the restaurant was full. The customer was quite angry and he was loud and vocal and drawing attention to his table. The more he talked, the louder he got, and he started to swear and threatened to leave without paying and put a poor review online. It felt like the situation was escalating. I knew that I needed to diffuse the situation without causing a scene and try and resolve the situation so that both the customer and the restaurant would be happy. I could have gone to the manager to handle the situation, but I knew that I had the skills to deal with the situation and wanted to show my initiative. I started resolving the issue by using my communication skills to diffuse the situation. To start with, I used my active listening skills to listen to the customer's complaint to make sure that I fully understood the issue. Then I used reflective listening and paraphrased back to the customer their concerns and issues to make sure that I fully understood, but also to make sure the customer felt heard. I then used empathy to show the customer that I understood how frustrating the situation was for him. We then spoke about how we could move forward to resolve the issue. I knew what the company policy was and what I was allowed to offer in this situation. I used my problem-solving skills and initiative and offered the customer an entree plate free of charge that was available immediately and put a rush on the customer's correct order. The use of my communication skills immediately diffused the situation. The customer went from being loud and angry to lowering his voice and behaving civilly. The use of my problem-solving skills meant the customer received his correct order promptly and went on to finish his meal with no issues. The customer was happy with the outcome and in the end thanked me for my understanding. My manager also commented on how well I resolved the situation. I learnt that to diffuse a situation, you need to listen to the other person fully first to understand the issue and then use communication skills to try and solve the problem. Make sure you download the free STAR model info sheet that summarises all of the STAR steps that we've covered in this video. And if you liked this video, hit the like button so we know to make more content to help you prepare for panel interview success. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on more panel interview tips and advice.